Sarah has a presentation for us now on Plato.
Okay, so as the slide says, I'm doing mine on Plato and the the Academy to the 1st century. So surprisingly, this chapter didn't really talk much about Plato's life leading up to the Academy. It did say that he was estimated to be born in 429 BC in Athens, living to be about 82, dying in 347 BC. He was raised in an aristocratic family, and it could be assumed that Plato probably received a good, well-rounded education, and because of his social class, would have probably become a poet or statesman, but he was greatly influenced by Socrates, who was a philosopher. And if I'm understanding correctly, Socrates criticized the government and was sentenced to death, poisoned by hemlock, and it was his death that actually inspired Plato to become a philosopher himself. So he traveled extensively for the next 12 years and all. It looks like it got cut off down there. But then he returned to Athens and began teaching. And when he was there, he organized a fellowship, and the building where he taught became known as the Academy. Got cut off again. Anyway, Plato used the dialogue form of teaching, of writing to teach. He believed that truth was arrived at through conversation, not lectures. And there were 3 periods of dialogues. The early dialogues tries to define qualities such as courage, self-control, justice, etc., only to answer with the answer, I don't know, like you don't really know what you're getting to, I guess. And some examples of those would have been Euthyphro, Crito, Protagoras, and Apology. I'm probably going to mess up a lot of these names along the way. The middle group period would have been when he focused more on ideas. Plato wavered between the view of the world of senses being an imitation of the real world of ideas and the view that the world participates in ideas. So some of these dialogues would have been the Republic, Phaedo, and Symposium. And then the last period, Plato shifted his focus to mathematics, logic, and the relations between things. So that included sophists, statesmen, Phlebas, Timaeus, and laws. Plato's view of ideas was different than ours today. Like I said earlier, Plato reasoned that things in the real world were imitations of ideas. So for example, a circle is considered to be perfectly round, but in reality, no circle is considered actually perfect. He also believed, to quote Ferguson, all forms or ideas are summed up in the one ultimate ideal, which is considered the idea of good. And this is the closest Platonic idea to the Christian view of God. But Plato did not believe in a personal God. He believed in being set free by knowledge and sharing it with others. The Western idea of the division between body and soul is derived from Plato's philosophy that the body is a vehicle of the immortal soul. So he believed that the soul was divided into 3 parts: the rational, also known as the intellectual, the vibrant or spirited, and the desirous or appetitive. Is that pronounced right, the appetitive? And each of these parts, he would say, had a virtue that went along with each of those. Let me see if I can find the right list there for that. So it would be wisdom, courage, and self-control, respectively. And when a person had all 3 of these working together in harmony, then that person would reflect the value of justice. And it's kind of cut off down there on the bottom, but Plato's thoughts have had influence with Christian, Jewish, and even Islamic philosophy. So getting back to the Academy, which I mentioned earlier, the Academy continued even after Plato's death with his nephew Speusippus, and who was the first to succeed him as the head. And there were 3 more heads after that during the Old Academy. Xenocrates, who, according to Ferguson, was known for systematically teaching the nature of gods and demons and bringing attention to the practical morality. And then Polemon, who was mostly interested in ethics. And lastly, Crates, and he was the last one to stick to Plato's system before we go to the skeptical Academy. In 268, Archsilas was the first head during the era known as the Middle, New, or Second Academy, and he took the school back to the skeptical attitude of Socrates. And then Carneades was also during the skeptical academy. He became head at 110 BC, and he believed in no absolutes. He was most famous for giving speeches on behalf of Athens at Rome on the topic of justice. He suggested that Rome give back what they had conquered, but that just ended up setting back the growth of philosophy in Rome for another century. Is that correct interpretation of that situation?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the Eclectic Academy. Philo of Larissa, who became head at 110 BC, reasoned that since we cannot know what we do not know, we should just assume that the probable is true. And it was not long after Philo's death that the academy closed its doors as an institution. Antiochus of Ascalon was a student of Philo's, and he claimed that Plato, Aristotle, and the Stoics all generally had the same teachings, so you should just select the points they had in common and follow those. And then this is the modern-day academy in Athens. It is not the same as Plato's academy. It actually wasn't even built until the late 1800s, but it honors Plato with a statue of him and Socrates out front. And I kept coming across that picture and doing research for this, so I was like, well, I figured I might share it. And that's it.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.